fellow cyborgs, and welcome to another Pajama Sunday. We haven't had one of these in many a year, so I put a poll up on YouTube community and asked for what video wanted me to film next, and Pajama Sunday won, so that's why you're getting this. Also, they're easy to make. So if you are new to my channel and you haven't gone back and watched other Pajama Sundays, I will explain what they are. So it's pretty much just me in my pajamas on a Sunday talking with you about whatever floats my fancy, and I tend to blather, and there might be personal updates rather than bookish updates, and it's just you get what you get, grab bag. So this year, 2022, reading-wise has been pretty good, and non-reading-wise has also been pretty good. A few months ago, I was able to go to Florida to participate in Acacia's wedding. She has the channel The Chaotic Little Book Corner, so that was a very special experience. I finally got to go to Epcot at Walt Disney World, and Living with the Land is like my new favorite ride ever. Not that I'm a super amusement park ride person these days, but still, it's something. While I was in Florida, I was also able to visit with Sarai from Sarai Talks Books. You might remember her channel, and we talked way too much about Jane Austen, and it was just an absolute delight. I was able to see manatees in the wild, so I've got a new pajama shirt that I'm wearing for you today, and it was one of the best trips ever. And so that was a beautiful like jewel to start out 2022 with. So because Sarai and I were talking ad nauseum about Jane Austen, and this year she's rereading Jane Austen's novels, or at least she's continuing to do it. I think she might have started last year. We decided to read Persuasion. This was a reread for both of us, and that happened recently. We finished it just last week, and that was a really enjoyable experience. I liked Persuasion more than when I originally read it. I originally gave it a begrudging 3-star, and now on Storygraph, I put it at a 3.5, and that was a hearty 3.5 reading experience. For those of you who know me, you know that Jane Austen is not one of my favorite authors. None of her books are going to be 5-star books for me. However, I really appreciate her writing, and I find the rereadability of her books to be very high. So it's almost always a rewarding experience when rereading Jane Austen. But one thing that I struggle with Jane Austen is that she is an indirect writer. There's an awful lot of dialogue in most of her books. Persuasion's not really one of them, but oftentimes there's not a lot of introspection where the characters are right there telling you their thoughts and feelings. You have to read between the lines for a lot of things. And so if I'm not in the right headspace when I go to read Jane Austen, then a lot of the emotional impact is just lost for me. I really was mindful to this when rereading Persuasion, especially since the first few chapters I really struggled to get into the novel, mostly because the first few chapters weren't primarily about Anne. And so as I continued to move forward with the book, I really focused on making sure my mental picture of the scenario and the scene that I was reading was as clear as I could make it, so that I then, humanized these characters who on the page, they're sneaky in how you see them. Another thing that I realized that I mistakenly remember when I'm thinking about Jane Austen is the idea that these are primarily romances and the heroine and hero figures are the main characters. But every time I pick up an Austen, whether or not I enjoy reading about the secondary characters matters a great deal to my overall enjoyment of an Austen. Case in point, Persuasion, the first 2 chapters are about her father and her family at large, or Anne's father and Anne's family at large. And I don't particularly find Sir Eliot funny. And so reading about him and reading about her sister Mary was kind of aggravating for the most part. Whereas in other Austens, like in Emma, the side characters, I take great joy in getting their perspectives and hearing what they have to say. I'm somehow not irritated by it. And even in Mansfield Park, Mrs. Norris, I actually found laughable. So she was not a tyrant on the page for me in the same way that she's a tyrant in Fanny's life, because I was able to see the ridiculousness in her. But a lot of times when there is a character who is supposed to be ridiculous, I just find them irritating. So that definitely changes the reading experience for me for Austen. So needless to say, once I got into the groove of remembering how to read Jane Austen to best enjoy her work, I didn't want to stop right at the end of Persuasion, which is one of her shortest books. So I jumped right into Northanger Abbey. So my friend told me about this idea of book bankruptcy, which she first saw on TikTok from at Page Melt. This term of book bankruptcy, where occasionally your reading's just not going the way that you planned. The books that you're reading, it's not that they're all bad books or anything like that, but you're just not having an easy time with them. And you need to abandon all of your bookish plans, submit to bankruptcy, and then you get to read whatever you want and do that. Just mood read your heart out. And I think that I'm doing that. I have many, many books that I'm quote unquote currently reading on Storygraph, and I'm not actively reading like any of them. And this year, I have more books on my physical TBR than I'm comfortable with. I have about 50 books, and I would be most comfortable if it was under 30. And so when I've been looking at my reading and planning my reading for this year, a lot of it has been focused on how many physical TBR books can I just crank out this month, which for me is an attitude that just does not really serve me in the way that I want it to anymore. So the main thing that made me realize that this mentality of I need to get my physical TBR under control ASAP. I was reading the book We Ride Upon Sticks. I don't remember the author. I got it for, I think, Christmas from Acacia when she sent me a big box of books that she had been saving for me, that she had extras of, or she found really cheap, which is very generous of her. And I was reading the audiobook because it was available at my library, and I figured, great, I can check this off the list. And as I was listening to it, I was listening to it at an accelerated speed, which is my normal these days. And I realized that it was kind of a complicated book to listen to on audio because there were so many characters. At first I thought, well, I don't need to have all these characters memorized. If later a certain character becomes more significant than another, then I will figure out who they are in my brain space then. I don't need to worry about it now. But there was a part of me that said, this is a really fun like snapshot into 80s culture, and I'm just not taking the time to savor that and enjoy that right now the way that I'm reading. If I ever felt like I wanted a My Best Friend's Exorcism book, but not read that book again, this would be a great book to pick up when I'm in that mood, but I'm just not in that mood right now. And if I continue to read this book, I will have read it. I can check it off my physical TBR list, but I know in the back of my mind, unless something went horribly wrong and I started really not enjoying it, it would be a book that I would tell myself you have to reread when you can read it more patiently in the future and give it a better chance than you did over audio. And what's the point of reading something one time if you know you're going to have to read it a second time because you're not going to read it that first time well enough? So I abandoned that book, and it's still on my physical TBR. I'm still looking forward to reading it, just not right this second. But I didn't immediately abandon all of my you will read this thing because it's on your physical TBR plans. But I think because of this pause, because of Austen, and finding it really enjoyable to go slow and take my time with a book, and specifically with a reread, and knowing that I have a bunch of classics on my shelves, my physical TBR shelves, that I can't get in audio form, and so I will have to read them physically, and classics by their nature for me take more effort and time, and maybe I'm back into the classic mood, and so finally those books that I've had on my physical TBR that have been lingering because they're classics, maybe I can right now jump on my wave of enjoying rereading English classics and start on those. So I'm thinking that right now, maybe I'm in the mood for something that completely spoils the plans that I already had put upon myself for April and May. But were those plans valid to begin with? No, because they're all arbitrary, and it's all just me thinking about how I'm going to read books. And I started out a list on Storygraph with my 2022 TBR. And so at the beginning of the year, I tagged books on Storygraph of all of the books that I wanted to read in 2022. Not all of them, but I think it was like 20 to 30 books, something like that I wanted to read in 2022. And a lot of them were books on my physical TBR. It's like, okay, now's the time, you should do it. But as the months have gone on, I'm finding that I'm not identifying with those books so much anymore, and the way that I thought my reading was going to go isn't. And this very much reminds me about how a lot of booktubers have done quarterly goals instead of yearly goals, because who's to say what kind of reader you're going to be at the end of the year? And I think it just depends on the kind of reader that you truly are and identify with. If you are a systematic reader, a reader who is not controlled by moods and whims, and you have these long-term goals that you are like tried and true, this is definitely something I want, then having a year-long plan is great for you. But if you are a mood reader and you get really into this one thing and you just only want to read this one thing, then having a yearly goal, it's just nonsense. You can't foresee the future. You can't plan what you're going to want. For the most part, I think of myself as a systematic reader because a lot of the books that I put on my shelves, they are very much Amanda books. And so it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and when is negotiable of when I'm going to get to those and when it will be a great time for me to actually read that book. And I don't know if I'm becoming a mood reader or if the secret to enjoying my reading is mood reading, or if occasionally I will be a mood reader and I need to put all systematic plans aside, but systematic plans are good for when I don't have a particular mood for something so that I do keep reading. I don't know. Probably the third one. The third one sounds like the most reasonable description of what's happening. So I'm kind of thinking for right now, I can just abandon all plans and just be a mood reader as long as I'm actually reading. And I think that's part of the issue. When I was reading the buddy read with Persuasion, I had so many chapters that I had to get to. So that meant that I was reading in the morning and chances are I didn't finish everything that I needed to. So I was then reading it before bed. So it was the one book that I was reading, which is not normal for me. Normally I read multiple books. I've just noticed that the hours in the day that I want to / can be reading is just very limited right now. I don't know that I dedicate more than 1 hour a day to reading. I think it might even be like 30 minutes of uninterrupted reading per day sometimes. And maybe it's like 30 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night. Maybe it's something like that. But I don't just sit in the morning and read for over an hour. I don't just sit in the afternoon and read for over an hour anymore. For me, I guess the struggle is if I'm not like actively enjoying having a joyful reading experience, then what is going to be my motivation to prioritize reading when otherwise I could be doing or should be doing other things? And if I don't have that pressure of a plan, then will I pick up a second book to read even though I finished my quota of like my mood reading book? Or I don't know. This is getting really complicated and ridiculous. I think the thing that I'm trying to say is mood reading is great when I actually follow through and do the reading part of the mood part. But then if I think I'm just mood reading, but then I'm not actually reading, I mean, that's also a valid experience for humanity, just not reading. But I feel like it is something that is missing in my life. I really like my reading life. And I really like my reading goals and I really like prioritizing that. And if I don't have something holding me accountable, then a lot of times I'll just do the lazy thing, which is just watch YouTube videos or reorganize for no good reason or socialize with friends and family, the stuff that doesn't really matter. Just kidding. So I've been thinking a lot about my channel, about where it started, about how excited I was, about the sorts of videos I was making and the sorts of videos that I am making now. And since I have been filming irregularly, partly it's due to laziness, partly it's due to my bicep tendonitis still making it physically painful and slow to edit my videos. I recently have been filming wrap-up videos that aren't wrap-up videos. So it's not monthly wrap-up videos, but it's videos where there's a theme and I can talk about the most books that I have recently read as I can under this umbrella theme. I don't like doing monthly wrap-ups. I never have. So this is a way for me to do a wrap-up, but with it still being kind of fun. And I know you guys appreciate that. I know that for a lot of you who are on my channel, anything that I come out with is a bright spot in your day. And I feel you, I see you, thank you. But I also don't think that you guys are as concerned about me chronicling my reading and reviewing as many books as possible. I have a feeling that some of you really like that, and for you who watch my channel because of book recommendations, then that's probably the most valuable thing for you. But considering how wide my reading tastes span and how much it's changed and fluctuated over the years, I find it hard to believe that most of you are here primarily for book recommendations. I personally, as a BookTube watcher, my favorite channels are not because I get the best book recommendations. It's because of the personalities of the booktuber. And I could listen to them talk about a book about cheese for 15 minutes if they did it in a spirited, motivated, engaging way. So I get the feeling that you guys are kind of the same, that you're here because of my glowing cyborgian quotidian personality, rather than because I'm a particularly excellent book recommender. I don't think of myself, frankly, as being a book recommender at all. I think of this as just a way for me to chronicle my reading life in a way that's more sustainable for me than book journaling, because I am not good at journaling. If my current process of filming videos when you have enough books to talk about and you've got enough of a kind of book to talk about, if that's not serving anyone particularly, then what videos do I want to be filming exactly? Something more casual and that requires less editing, like Pajama Sundays, might be a great easy way. I don't think anybody has a problem with Pajama Sundays. If you're not into it, just don't watch it. If you want to hear me blather, then enjoy. It's happening right now. So that might be something I could do more often. I personally really love like stat videos when Maya Reads talks about her reads and receipts, and she talks about this is how many books are on my physical TBR, this is how many books I hauled, this is how many books I read, this is the new number. I really enjoy that. That is a more effortful video, but maybe I could do it in a effortless way somehow. Though it would hold me accountable for the books I've been purchasing this year, which I have not been talking to you guys about. I don't really want to do book hauls as their own independent videos, but maybe I can do something like this where you can see the books that are incoming, but it's like not just only about me buying books. So I don't know. Let me know if that's something that you're motivated with. I'm not going to make it if you guys don't like those kinds of videos, but if you would like to get updates on how my physical TBR is doing, etc., then let me know. In the poll that I sent to the community, the second most popular video that you guys voted on was all of the books on my physical TBR, so that's definitely something that I will be filming. It's just going to require a lot of cleanup afterward because there's like 50 books that I'll be showing you and I haven't decided exactly how I want to do that. Would you guys prefer a long video where you see my face and I hold up the book and I tell you about it? Would you prefer that kind of here are all of the books on my physical TBR? Or would you guys be satisfied with just like, I put the book artfully on my bed and there's background music and I comment on it through voiceover? That one could be shorter than hello. But if you prefer seeing my face, partly because my artistic non-face videos aren't all that artistic at all, then let me know. I would love your input there. I would mostly just love your input, period. So if any of you have an opinion, you have the time, willpower, and spoons to share it with me about the sort of video that you would like me to see, and this is an in good faith, you know, we're treating each other respectfully sort of request, sort of kind of video, then always welcome. The comment section is open. Please feel free to let me know, and you can help me steer this channel boat in the direction that you'd prefer, as long as that aligns up with things that I'd like to do too. Anyway, I think that I've been talking for far too long now. We'll have a fun time editing this down. Not really, it's just gonna be what the monster that it already is. Please let me know in the comments down below what mood reading you've been trapped in recent history. Are you team mood reader or are you team plan it out and commit to the plan? Are there any videos of mine that you particularly miss seeing, that you haven't seen in a while, or that you like, that you want to see more of? Do let me know. And until next time, have a Pajama Sunday, of your own, drink some tea, read whatever you want, have fun, and continue to be lovely.